My name is Melissa, and the night I texted my family for help, I got a response from a man who'd been dead to me for 12 years. The rain hammered against my windshield as I sat stranded on Interstate 75, just outside Atlanta. My Honda had given up on me at the worst possible moment, 11 p.m., no gas stations in sight, and my phone battery dying at 8%. The kind of night where every passing truck feels like a threat, and the darkness between streetlights stretches forever. I did what anyone would do. I opened our family group chat and typed, "Car broke down on highway. Can anyone help?" My mom saw it immediately. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. My brother Ryan read it, but didn't respond. I watched those little indicators, waiting, my chest tight with something that felt like fear, but tasted like abandonment. Then my phone buzzed with a text from a number I hadn't seen in 12 years. "What's your exact location?" My hands froze on the steering wheel. My father had walked out when I was 14, leaving behind nothing but divorce papers and a forwarding address somewhere in Nevada. We never spoke again. Mom had made it clear he wanted nothing to do with us. He chose himself over his family. He disappeared and never looked back. Why was he in our family chat? And how did he even have this number? Before I could process any of it, before I could text back or block him or scream, my phone rang. Unknown number. Against every instinct screaming at me to decline, I answered, "Melissa?" His voice was older, rougher, but unmistakably his. "How did you listen carefully? Lock your doors. Don't open them for anyone. I'm 20 minutes away." The line went dead point 20 minutes. Felt like 20 hours. I followed his taillights through rain-slicked streets, my mind racing faster than the speedometer. Every turn he made, I questioned whether I should keep following. Every red light gave me a chance to turn around, go home, pretend this night never happened. But I didn't know we ended up at an extended stay motel off I-285, the kind of place where people don't ask questions and the weekly rates are displayed bigger than the nightly ones. His black pickup pulled into a spot near the back, away from the overhead lights. I parked next to him, my hand still gripping the steering wheel, like it was the only solid thing left in my world. He knocked on my window. "Room 218. Follow me up." The motel hallway smelled like cigarette smoke and cleaning chemicals trying to mask something worse. Dad walked ahead of me, his keys already in his hand, and I noticed he checked over his shoulder twice before unlocking the door. Not looking at me, looking past me. The room took my breath away, but not for any good reason. Every available surface was covered. The walls had papers taped to them, documents, photographs, maps with routes marked in red. The small desk overflowed with manila folders, each one labeled with dates. A corkboard leaned against the TV, connected by red string like something out of a crime show. But this wasn't entertainment. This was someone's obsession. This was my father's life. "How long have you been here?" I asked, still standing in the doorway. 6 months in this room. 6 months in Georgia. He moved to the desk, started sorting through papers like he knew exactly where everything was. Before that, I was in Nevada. Before that, Arizona. Always moving. Always looking over my shoulder. Looking for what? The truth. He pulled out a folder, thick with documents, and proof that I wasn't crazy. That what happened to me, to us, wasn't what your mother said it was. I wanted to walk out. Every instinct told me this man was delusional, that Mom had been right to keep us away from him. The walls covered in documents, the conspiracy board, the way he looked at me like I was part of some master plan I didn't understand. But then he opened the folder. "This is the restraining order your mother filed against me in 2013. He handed me the paper, and I recognized the court seal, the official stamps that made it real. "Read it. Tell me what it says." I scanned the document, my hand shaking. Petitioner Patricia Hayes claims the respondent David Hayes engaged in physical violence, created an unsafe environment for minor children, demonstrated erratic and threatening behavior. Mom said you left. My voice came out smaller than I intended. I didn't leave, Melissa. I was forced out. He pulled out another document. This is the police report from the night she claimed I hit her. Notice anything? I looked at the officer's notes, the timestamp, the lack of physical evidence. No photographs of injuries. No hospital records. Just her statement and Jerome Richardson's corroborating testimony. Jerome was there. I asked. Jerome was always there. Dad's voice went hard. He was there when she filed the report. He was there when she filed for the restraining order. He was there in court, holding her hand, playing the concerned family friend. He spread more documents across the bed. Court transcripts, custody hearing records, letters marked return to sender. Your mother and Jerome Richardson filed these papers together, Melissa. Not separately. Together. They planned this, executed it, and the system believed them. His finger traced a line on the custody agreement. I lost everything. My children, my home, my reputation. And the worst part, I couldn't even tell you the truth because the restraining order prohibited all contact. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. Mom, where are you? This isn't funny anymore. Come home right now, Dot. I stared at the text, then at the man in front of me, then at the walls covered in 12 years of desperate searching. Tell me everything, I said. Dad sat on the edge of the motel bed, and for the first time in 12 years, I really looked at him. The scar on his cheek that hadn't been there before, the gray threading through his hair, the way his hands shook slightly when he wasn't holding something. Your mother and Jerome Richardson started their affair in 2006, he began. You were 7. Ryan was 10. I didn't know. I was working 2 jobs, trying to build something for our family, and I didn't see what was happening in my own house. I sat in the desk chair, my legs suddenly unable to hold me up. Jerome was my friend. The word came out bitter. We went to Ebenezer Baptist together. He did the remodeling on our kitchen in 2005. Good rates, quality work, always showed up on time. I recommended him to half the congregation. Dad laughed, but there was no humor in it. I helped him build his business, and he was sleeping with my wife. When did you find out? March 2012. I came home early from work, sick with the flu. Found them in our bedroom. His jaw clenched. Your mother's face when she saw me, it wasn't guilt, Melissa. It was anger, like I'd interrupted something that belonged to her. I thought about 2012, tried to remember anything unusual. I'd been 13, consumed with middle school drama and thinking about high school. Had Mom and Dad fought more? Had there been signs? I moved out that night, Dad continued. Stayed with my brother Calvin for a month while we figured out divorce terms. Your mother agreed to split custody, 50-50. We were going to tell you and Ryan together, make it as easy as possible. He pulled out another document. Then Jerome convinced her to take everything. The document was a legal strategy memo from an attorney named Robert Mitchell. I scanned the bullet points, my stomach turning with each line. Established pattern of aggressive behavior. Secure restraining order before custody hearing. Witnesses to corroborate domestic violence claims. Petition for sole custody with supervised visitation, only she. Went to court 2 weeks later with a fabricated story, Dad said. Claimed I'd been abusing her for years. Hitting her, threatening her, scaring the children. Jerome backed up every word. So did your mother's sister, your Aunt Denise. 3 witnesses, all saying the same thing. But it wasn't true. The judge was Patricia Newman, a white woman, mid-50s, built her career on protecting domestic violence victims. Dad's voice went flat. She looked at me, black man, raised voice in my own defense, and she'd already made up her mind. I saw it in her eyes. To her, I was every statistic she'd ever read, every news story she'd ever seen. The room felt too small, too hot. What happened? Restraining order granted immediately. Emergency custody to your mother pending full hearing. I was ordered to stay 500 feet away from the house, from the children, from Patricia. He showed me the order, and I saw the judge's signature, official and final. The full custody hearing was scheduled for 3 months later. I hired a lawyer, Spent every penny I had building a defense, and I lost. The words came out hollow. No evidence of abuse didn't matter. My clean record didn't matter. Character witnesses from church didn't matter. The judge ruled that the risk was too great, that supervised visitation was the best outcome to protect the children from potential harm. So you got visitation? Supervised visits, 1 hour per week at a county facility. Dad's hands curled into fists. Your mother brought you twice. Ryan came once. After that, she claimed you didn't want to see me, that forcing visitation would traumatize you. The family court agreed. Did I remember those visits now, vague and dreamlike? A room with toys and a woman taking notes. Dad trying to talk to me while I cried, confused about why we couldn't go home with him. Mom in the parking lot afterward, telling me how brave I was, how hard it must have been. She'd been coaching me, training me to reject him. I kept paying child support, Dad said. Every month, automatically garnished from my paycheck. $1,600, gone before I ever saw it. But I couldn't see my children. Couldn't call, couldn't write, couldn't show up at school events. He looked at me and his eyes were wet. I tried, Melissa. I sent letters to your school, but they were returned unopened. I called from different numbers, but your mother had them blocked. I drove by the house once just to see you, and a neighbor called the cops. I was arrested for violating the restraining order. That's why you left Georgia. That I didn't leave. I ran. He stood up, paced to the window. The prosecutor offered a deal, plead guilty to violating the restraining order, serve 6 months in county jail, or leave the state permanently and they'd drop the charges. I had a record by then. A black man with a domestic violence accusation and a restraining order violation. If I went to jail, I'd never see my kids again. That he turned back to me. So I went to Nevada, got a job in construction, sent money every month, and died a little bit every day knowing you were growing up, thinking I abandoned you, that my phone buzzed again. From Ryan, Mom's freaking out. Where are you? Why aren't you answering? Mom. Melissa Patricia Hayes, you answer me right now. Patricia. My middle name was her first name. How had I never thought about that before? There's more, Dad said quietly. And it's worse than you think. For years, I accepted it, Dad said, pulling out a new folder. This one was blue, newer than the others. I sent money, stayed away, tried to rebuild some kind of life in Nevada. Worked construction, moved from site to site, sent every extra dollar back to Georgia for you and Ryan. He opened the folder. Then 6 months ago, I hired a private investigator. Why 6 months ago? Because I got a call from Calvin, your uncle. He said Jerome Richardson's construction company was in the news. Major contract with the city of Atlanta, $1 million project. And I thought about that man living in my house, raising my children on my money, building an empire while I lost everything. Dad's voice shook. I wanted to know if there was any way to reopen my case, any new evidence that could give me my life back. He handed me a report from Hartley Investigations, dated 6 months ago. The PI started digging into Jerome's background. Found something I wasn't expecting. Dad pointed to a section highlighted in yellow. Jerome Richardson was married before your mother. Wife's name was Denise Richardson. She died in 2004 in a car accident. Okay. I didn't understand why that mattered. Single car accident. She drove off a bridge in Cobb County. Rainy night, poor visibility, car went through the guardrail. Dad pulled out a police report. Ruled accidental. No investigation beyond standard procedure. Dad, accidents happen, they do. But Denise had a life insurance policy. $500,000. Jerome was the sole beneficiary. He showed me the insurance payout records. Paid out 3 months after her death. Jerome used the money to start his construction company. My mouth went dry. Now look at this. Dad pulled out another document, and my hands went numb when I saw my name at the top. Life insurance policy, taken out 14 months ago. Insured, Melissa Patricia Hayes. Beneficiaries, Patricia Hayes and Jerome Richardson. Payout $500,000. I couldn't breathe. The room tilted. Your mother's will, recently updated. Another document. Ryan gets the house in Stone Mountain. The cars, the personal belongings. But there's a clause here. If you predecease your mother, she inherits your life insurance payout. Then when she passes, everything goes to Ryan and Jerome equally. This doesn't mean your fuel line tonight. Dad's voice cut through my denial. That wasn't wear and tear, Melissa. Someone cut it clean through. Professional job, precise. The kind of thing a contractor would know how to do without leaving obvious evidence. He showed me photos on his phone. Close-ups of my fuel line. The cut too smooth to be accidental. They didn't just want me gone 12 years ago, Dad said. They need you gone now. And I think I know why I sat in that motel room, surrounded by evidence of a conspiracy that started before I was old enough to understand what conspiracy meant, and my brain refused to process it. Every memory I had was suddenly suspect. Every moment of my childhood needed re-examination. Jerome buying me a car for my 16th birthday. I thought he was being generous. Now I saw control. A way to track where I went, to maintain the story of the happy blended family. Mom discouraging me from going to college, out of state. I thought she'd miss me. Now I understood isolation. Keep me close, keep me dependent, keep me available. Ryan's success in real estate, his partnership with Jerome's company. I thought he was smart, hardworking. Now I knew the truth. He wasn't Dad's son. He was Jerome's biological child, the golden boy who'd inherit everything, while I was the loose end that needed handling. How long have you known about Ryan? I asked. Dad's face changed, softened. I found out during the custody battle. Court-ordered paternity test. Patricia claimed I was lying about the affair, said Jerome was just a friend. So my lawyer demanded proof. He showed me the results. Ryan isn't biologically mine. The affair started earlier than 2006. Probably 2004, maybe before. Does Ryan know? I don't think so. Patricia and Jerome have kept that secret locked tight. But Melissa, I raised that boy from birth. I loved him. I still love him. Dad's voice cracked. Losing him was the worst part. Not the house, not the money, not even the reputation. Losing my son, Dad. I thought about Ryan. 3 years older than me, always the favorite. Mom's pride and joy. The one who got the better Christmas presents, the college fund, the job connections. I'd resented him for years without understanding why he was different, because he was Jerome's insurance policy. The heir who'd inherit everything, including the spoils of my death. Why phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Text after text from Mom, from Ryan, each one more demanding than the last. If you don't answer in 5 minutes, I'm calling the police. This is ridiculous. Dad's poisoning your mind. Come home, Dad. Ryan called Jerome Dad now. When had that started? I looked at the man across from me, the one who'd spent 12 years fighting to prove his innocence, who'd lost everything because a woman lied and a system believed her. The one who'd been watching from a distance for 6 months, trying to protect a daughter who thought he'd abandoned her. What do we do now? I asked. Now, Dad said, we go to the police. We show them everything. And we keep you alive long enough to see justice. Why phone lit up with a new message from Mom. Family meeting tomorrow. 2 p.m. That we need to discuss your future. This is non-negotiable. Dad saw the text and his face went white. Melissa, Jerome's first wife, had a family meeting 1 week before she died. They wanted to discuss her well-being, her future plans. He gripped my arm. This is how it starts. Have you ever had to question every single thing you thought was true about your family? Have you ever discovered that the people who raised you had been lying to your face for years, rewriting history, erasing someone you loved? Comment below if you've experienced this kind of betrayal. Share where you're watching from. You're not alone and your story matters. If this is hitting close to home, hit that subscribe button because Melissa's story is about to get even more complicated and you'll want to see how she fights back. Dad spread the contents of the blue folder across the motel bed like a detective presenting evidence to a jury. Each document told part of a story I wasn't sure I wanted to hear. Jerome Richardson's construction company, Richardson and Sons, has been bleeding money for 3 years. He handed me a financial statement marked confidential, Hartley investigations, major contracts that went over budget, lawsuits from clients claiming shoddy work, payments to subcontractors bouncing. He's drowning, Melissa. I scan the numbers. Red everywhere. Negative balances, outstanding loans, collection notices. How is he still in business? He's not. Not really. Dad pulled out another sheet. 6 months ago, he took out a second mortgage on the house in Stone Mountain. Your mother's house. The one she got in the divorce. But he mortgaged Mom's house. Correction, he mortgaged their house. Patricia added him to the deed 4 years ago. Dad's finger traced the property records. They're 3 months behind on payments. The bank sent a foreclosure notice last month. Why stomach dropped. Mom doesn't know, does she? I don't think so. Jerome handles all the finances. She signs whatever he puts in front of her. Dad pulled out more documents. But here's where it gets interesting. 3 weeks after they took out that second mortgage, they increased your life insurance policy from $250,000 to $500,000. The timeline made my skin crawl. House in foreclosure, business failing, insurance policy doubled. Now look at this. Dad showed me Jerome's previous wife's death certificate. Denise Richardson died March 15th, 2004. Single vehicle accident, Bridge Road, Cobb County. The police report said her car went off the bridge during a rainstorm. No witnesses, no skid marks, no evidence of mechanical failure. They ruled it accidental. I read the report, noting the sparse details. It says here the guardrail was old, structurally weak. The guardrail was repaired 2 weeks before her accident. Brand new installation. Dad showed me county maintenance records. That information never made it into the final police report. The investigating officer retired 6 months later. You think Jerome paid him off? I think the system failed. A black woman drives off a bridge, and nobody asks hard questions. Accident. Case closed. Dad's voice went hard. But guess who collected $500,000 3 months later? He showed me the insurance payout records. Denise Richardson had a policy through Southeastern Family Insurance. Agent Marcus Richardson. Jerome's cousin. Same insurance company you have now, Dad said. Same agent. Marcus Richardson sold your mother the policy on you. Family discount. That I felt sick. They've done this before, and they're doing it again. But this time they're not as careful. Dad pulled out photos, the ones he'd taken of my car's fuel line. This wasn't amateur work, but it wasn't perfect either. See this cut? Clean, precise, done with professional tools. But they left tool marks. The angle is consistent with someone cutting from the driver's side, probably while the car was parked. Where do I park? Employee lot at your job. Covered parking, cameras everywhere. Dad showed me more photos, these from my apartment complex. But you also park at your apartment. Outdoor lot, minimal security, broken cameras in half the complex. He pulled up something on his phone. Surveillance footage from my building. The timestamp read 3 weeks ago, 2:17 a.m. A truck pulled into the lot. No front license plate, tinted windows. It parked next to my Honda for 6 minutes, then left. I got this from your apartment complex security office. They keep footage for 30 days. Dad zoomed in on the truck. That's a Ford F-250, dark blue. Contractor's rack on top. Watch what happens next. The footage showed a figure in dark clothing approaching my car, crouching by the driver's side, then standing and walking back to the truck. 6 minutes total. That was the night before you woke up dizzy and sick, Dad said. The night you thought you had food poisoning, that I remembered. I'd felt terrible for 2 days, couldn't keep anything down. Missed work. Mom had come over with soup. Fussed about me living alone. Suggested I should move back home where someone could take care of me. Your gas leak last month. Dad pulled up more footage. Same truck, different night. Jerome's truck was in your lot 3 hours before you smelled gas. The maintenance guy said your stove connection was loose. Easy fixed at near miss with that car 2 months ago. Another photo, this one from a traffic camera. That sedan that ran the red light and almost hit you? Reported stolen that morning. Found abandoned that night. No prints, no leads. I counted backwards in my head. The gas leak, the near miss, the food poisoning, tonight's fuel line. For incidents in 3 months, each one escalating to their building toward something. I whispered, they're building toward your death, looking accidental. Dad met my eyes, and tomorrow's family meeting is the setup. Dad insisted we go back to my car before dawn. We need proof while it's still fresh, he said. Before anyone can clean it up or claim we tampered with evidence, we drove back to I-75 as the sun started breaking over Atlanta's skyline. My Honda sat exactly where I'd left it, hazard lights dead, looking abandoned and vulnerable on the shoulder. Dad parked behind it and pulled out a camera, the professional kind with multiple lenses. Stay in the truck, he said. I don't want your fingerprints anywhere near this. I watched him work, crouching beside my car, photographing every angle of the fuel line. He used a flashlight, even though the sun was up, getting close-ups of the cut, the tool marks, the way the line had been severed with surgical precision. This is a clean cut, he called out. Done with a sharp blade, probably a utility knife or a specialized mechanic's tool. See how the edge is smooth? That's not wear and tear. That's not degradation from age. That's deliberate. He took measurements, noted the angle, photographed the ground underneath for any dropped evidence. Then he opened his phone and called someone. Calvin, I need you to come to I-75, northbound, mile marker 47. Bring your toolkit. A pause. Yeah, it's about Melissa. We need documentation before we go to the police point 20 minutes later. My Uncle Calvin pulled up in his own truck. I hadn't seen him in years. Dad's older brother, the one who'd let Dad stay with him during the divorce. He looked at me through the passenger window, his expression unreadable. Melissa, he said finally, you look just like your daddy. Uncle Calvin. He walked to my car, and he and Dad conferred in low voices. Calvin pulled out tools, examined the fuel line, took his own photos. Then he did something I didn't expect. He carefully cut a sample of the damaged line and sealed it in a plastic bag. Evidence, he explained when he saw my face. Chain of custody. We document everything, photograph everything, preserve everything. When we go to the police, they can't say we're making this up. Dad showed Calvin the security footage from my apartment, the timeline of incidents, the insurance policy documents. Calvin's face got darker with each revelation. Jerome Richardson did this. Calvin's voice was low and dangerous. That man sat in our church, shook our hands, smiled in our faces. He's done it before, Dad said. Denise Richardson, 2004. Same pattern, same insurance payout. Calvin looked at me. Baby girl, you're not going home. You understand that? You're not going anywhere near Patricia or Jerome until we get the law involved. I have to go to work now. Uncle Calvin's tone left no room for argument. You call in sick. You stay away from your apartment. You stay with your daddy, or you stay with me and Brenda. But you don't go back to your regular life until this is handled. I thought about my job, my routine, my apartment with its broken security cameras and outdoor parking lot. I thought about Mom's text demanding I come to a family meeting. I thought about Jerome's truck in my parking lot at 2 a.m. and the figure crouching beside my car while I slept inside my apartment. They were planning to kill me, I said out loud, testing the words. They still are, Dad replied. Which is why we're going to the police today. Right now. Calvin bagged the last of the evidence. I know someone at Atlanta PD, detective who worked your daddy's case back in 2013. She didn't believe Patricia's story then. She'll listen now that we sat in Uncle Calvin's truck in a Waffle House parking lot while I called my supervisor at work. My hand shook so badly I almost dropped the phone twice. Hey Jennifer, it's Melissa. I need to take some personal days, you okay? You sound terrible. Family emergency. I need a few days to sort some things out. Take all the time you need. Is there anything I can do? I looked at Dad and Uncle Calvin, at the evidence bags between us, at my entire life packed into this moment. Just keep my job for me. Please. Of course. Text me if you need anything. I hung up and immediately saw 17 new messages. Mom, Ryan, even Jerome had texted from his number. This silent treatment is childish. We're family. We need to talk. Dad says you're being dramatic. Just come home, Jerome. Your mother is worried sick. Whatever David told you, it's lies. He's unstable, Melissa. Always has been. Dad saw me reading the messages. They're scared. They know something's changed. Ryan keeps calling Jerome Dad. The words tasted wrong in my mouth. Ryan doesn't know the truth. Dad's voice was gentle. Patricia told him the same lies she told everyone else. He thinks I'm the villain because that's all he's ever been told. Uncle Calvin started the truck. We need to tell him. Tell him what? I asked. That the man he calls Dad is actually his biological father? That his whole life is built on an affair and fraud and my real father getting erased. Eventually, yes. Dad looked at me. But first, we keep you alive. Ryan's truth can wait. Yours can't. My phone rang. Mom calling. I stared at her contact photo, the two of us at Ryan's college graduation, smiling like we were the perfect mother-daughter team. I'd paid for half of that graduation party, used my savings to help with the catering because Mom said money was tight. Money was tight because Jerome was bankrupting them, and I was the solution to their financial problems. If only I'd die accidentally, I decline the call. Another text came through immediately from Mom. Answer the phone. We have important things to discuss about your future. My future. The one they'd planned to end so they could collect $500,000. She's not going to stop, I said. And oh, she's not. Dad pulled out his own phone, which is why we're calling my attorney right now. Simone Jackson has been waiting 12 years for evidence like this. She's going to bury them. Uncle Calvin was already driving. Atlanta PD headquarters is 15 minutes from here. Let's go tell Detective Williams the truth. Attorney Simone Jackson met us at the police station, walking in with a leather briefcase and the kind of confidence that comes from winning cases everyone said were unwinnable. She was mid-40s, natural hair pulled back in a professional twist, wearing a navy suit that meant business. David. She shook Dad's hand, then turned to me. Melissa, I've been waiting a long time to meet you. You took my dad's case pro bono. I took your dad's case because I don't like it when the system railroads innocent people. She sat across from us in the conference room Detective Williams had provided. And I especially don't like it when that happens to black men who walk into court already convicted in the judge's mind. Detective Williams was a black woman in her early 50s, sharp-eyed and skeptical. She'd pulled the original case files from 2013, and they sat between us like ghosts. I remember your restraining order hearing, she said to Dad. I was the responding officer on the domestic violence call. Something about Patricia's story didn't sit right with me. No injuries, no prior calls to the residence, no history of violence. But the DA ran with it anyway, because a crying white woman is more believable than a black man saying he's innocent, Simone said flatly. We all know how that story goes. Dad spread out the evidence. The financial records, the insurance policies, the photos of my sabotaged fuel line, the security footage from my apartment, the timeline of incidents, Denise Richardson's death certificate and the inconsistencies in her accident report. Detective Williams examined everything methodically, taking notes, asking questions. When Dad showed her the footage of Jerome's truck in my parking lot, her jaw tightened. This is attempted murder, she said. Premeditated, planned with financial motive. The insurance fraud alone is worth years in prison. Can you arrest them? I asked that I can bring them in for questioning. But if we want charges that stick, we need more than circumstantial evidence and security footage. Williams looked at me directly. We need a confession, or we need to catch them in the act. The family meeting, Dad said. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. Patricia texted about it. Simone leaned forward. What family meeting? I showed her mom's messages. Family meeting tomorrow. 2 p.m. We need to discuss your future. This is non-negotiable. Jerome's first wife had a family meeting 1 week before she died, Dad said. Melissa's PI report documented it. They sat her down, discussed her finances, her health, her insurance policies, made everything look normal and planned. Then 7 days later, her car goes off a bridge. Detective Williams and Simone exchanged a look. You want me to wear a wire, I said, understanding flooding through me. Only if you're willing. Simone's voice was careful. This is dangerous, Melissa. If they suspect you know anything, if they think you're recording them, they'll kill me faster. I finished her sentence. But if I don't do this, they'll kill me anyway. At least this way we get evidence. Dad grabbed my hand. Absolutely not. I didn't find you after 12 years just to use you as bait. That I'm not bait. I'm a witness. I squeezed his hand back. And I'm the only one who can get them to talk. They think I'm weak. They think I'll believe whatever they tell me. Let them think that. Detective Williams pulled out paperwork. If we're doing this, we do it right. Full surveillance, backup officers positioned nearby, safe words, exit strategy. Nothing happens without multiple safety protocols. When do we start? I asked. Right now, Simone said. Because that family meeting tomorrow, that's when they're going to make their move. If you're wondering how someone could plan something like this against their own child, stick with me. The answer is more twisted than you think. Tomorrow's family meeting isn't just about insurance money or covering up debt. It's about a pattern of violence that goes back 20 years, and Melissa's about to walk right into the center of it. But this time she won't be alone. Hit that like button if you believe in fighting back. Subscribe if you want to see how this ends. And drop a comment telling me, would you have the courage to confront your family wearing a wire, knowing they want you dead? Because what happens next will test every ounce of Melissa's strength. The recording device was smaller than I expected. Detective Williams taped it to my chest, just below my collarbone, while Simone reviewed the legal implications one more time. You need clear verbal admission of intent, Simone said. We need them to acknowledge the insurance policy, the sabotage, ideally the first wife's death. Without that, a good defense attorney will argue circumstantial evidence. I need them to confess to planning my murder. My voice was steadier than I felt that I in their own words, yes. Detective Williams adjusted the wire, checking the audio levels on her equipment. We'll be listening from the surveillance van 2 houses down. Officers positioned on adjacent streets. If you say the safe word, Nevada, we come in immediately. Don't wait, don't hesitate. You say it, we move. Dad stood by the door, his arms crossed, his face tight with fear. This is wrong. She shouldn't have to do this, but you're right, I said. I shouldn't have to. But they killed Denise Richardson and got away with it. They've been trying to kill me for months. Someone has to stop them. And I'm the only one who can get them to talk. Melissa, you tried to protect me by staying away. And look what happened. They erased you. They turned Ryan against you. They made me believe you abandoned us. I walked over to him, put my hand on his arm. I'm not a child anymore. I need to do this. I need to hear them say it. Uncle Calvin spoke up from the corner. David, let her do this. She's stronger than you think. Dad looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw him recognize something he hadn't before. I wasn't the 14-year-old girl he'd lost. I was 26, and I'd survived 12 years in a house with people who wanted me dead. That took strength. He was only now beginning to understand. If anything happens to you, his voice cracked. Then you make sure they pay for it. I hugged him, feeling the wire press between us. But nothing's going to happen. I've got half of Atlanta PD watching my back. Detective Williams handed me an earpiece. nearly invisible once positioned. We'll be able to hear everything they say, and you'll hear us if we need to communicate. Remember, get them talking about the insurance, about your accidents, about the family meeting's real purpose. And Melissa. She met my eyes. You're one of the bravest people I've ever met. Simone walked me to the door. One more thing. If Ryan is there, and you tell him about the paternity, he deserves to know the truth. He does. But be prepared for his reaction. That's his whole world you're about to destroy. I thought about Ryan, my brother who wasn't really my brother, who'd spent his whole life believing lies. His world was built on my father's pain. Maybe it's time for some truth. The surveillance van dropped me off 3 blocks from the house. I walked the rest of the way, my childhood neighborhood suddenly feeling foreign. The house where I grew up stood at the end of the cul-de-sac, brick and shutters and a manicured lawn. The American dream, built on fraud and murder. I knocked on the door at exactly 2 p.m. Mom opened the door with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Melissa, baby, come in. We've been so worried about you. She hugged me, and I forced myself not to stiffen. Her perfume was the same as always, floral and cloying. The scent of my childhood, now associated with betrayal. Where were you last night? She guided me inside, her hand on my elbow like I was fragile. You didn't answer any of our calls, that I needed space to think. Jerome emerged from the living room, his contractor's build filling the doorway. He'd always been a big man, solid and dependable looking. Now all I saw was the hands that had cut my fuel line, that had pushed his first wife's car off a bridge. Melissa! His voice was warm, concerned. Your mother was beside herself. We're just glad you're safe. Ryan sat on the couch, his phone in his hands, not looking at me. He was dressed in his real estate agent uniform pressed shirt, slacks, the polished appearance of success. Jerome's biological son, though he didn't know it yet. Sit down, sweetheart. Mom gestured to the armchair, the one I'd always sat in during family meetings about report cards and college applications. We need to talk about some things. I sat, looking around the room I'd grown up in. The family photos on the walls, carefully curated. Mom, Jerome, Ryan, me. But in every photo, the composition was the same: Ryan and Jerome together, Mom nearby, me slightly apart. I'd never noticed the pattern before, and there wasn't a single photo of Dad. Not one. Like he'd never existed. Melissa, we're concerned about you. Mom sat across from me, her hands folded in her lap. You've been stressed lately, making poor decisions. Last night, disappearing without telling anyone where you were going. I'm 26. I don't need permission to go somewhere. Of course not. Jerome sat next to Mom, his voice reasonable. But when family is worried, when people care about you, it's considerate to communicate, right? Communication. That's important in families. I looked at Ryan. Don't you think so, Ryan? He finally met my eyes. Mom says you saw Dad. Is that true? Which Dad? The words came out before I could stop them. Jerome's expression shifted, just slightly. I think we all know David hasn't been a father to either of you in 12 years. Melissa, that's exactly what we want to discuss. Mom leaned forward, her face arranged in sympathy. We've noticed you've been struggling. The stress at work, living alone, and now this reaching out to David after all this time. We think you need help. What kind of help? Professional help. Jerome pulled out a folder from the side table. We've found an excellent facility. Quiet, private, focused on rest and recovery. Just for a few weeks, until you're feeling more like yourself. Detective Williams' voice crackled in my earpiece. They're trying to commit you. Keep them talking. A facility. I kept my voice confused, vulnerable. Like a hospital, a wellness center. Mom pulled papers from the folder, already filled out. We've handled all the arrangements. Insurance approved, everything ready. You can check in tomorrow. I looked at the forms. Voluntary commitment papers. Except there was nothing voluntary about this. Mom had signed as my emergency contact, claiming I was a danger to myself and others. "This seems fast," I said. "We've been planning it for a while." Jerome's voice was smooth. "Ever since your accident with the car and the gas leak. We've been worried about you for months, Melissa. These incidents, what incidents? The near miss with that car, the food poisoning, last night's breakdown on the highway." Mom counted them on her fingers. "Baby, these aren't coincidences. You're not taking care of yourself." Ryan shifted uncomfortably on the couch. "Maybe we should talk about this as a family first, before making any big decisions. This is a family discussion," Jerome said sharply. "And the decision is made. Melissa needs professional care. For how long?" I asked as long as necessary. Mom's smile was cold now. "We're doing this because we love you. You understand that, don't you?" I looked at the commitment forms, at the signatures already in place, at the casual efficiency of people who'd done this before, who'd convinced Denise Richardson she needed help, who'd isolated her, who'd created the perfect conditions for an accident nobody would question. Before I sign anything, I said slowly, "I need to understand something. I need to know why Dad really left." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Mom's face changed. The concerned mother mask slipped, revealing something harder underneath. "We're not discussing David. He has nothing to do with this. He has everything to do with this." I stayed in my seat, even though every instinct screamed at me to run. I saw the court documents, the restraining order, the domestic violence claims that gave you sole custody. Jerome stood up. "Your father was dangerous, Melissa. Unstable. We protected you from him. Funny, because the only person who ever hurt me in this family is sitting right here." I looked directly at him. "You were sleeping with my mother while you were still married to your first wife. Well, Dad thought you were his friend, that's enough." Jerome's voice went hard. "Ryan, did you know?" I turned to my brother. "Did you know Mom and Jerome were having an affair since 2006? Maybe earlier." Ryan looked between Mom and Jerome, confusion crossing his face. "What is she talking about? She's delusional," Mom said quickly. "This is exactly why she needs professional help. Dad isn't your biological father." The words came out clear and final. "Jerome is. The paternity test from the custody case proved it. Mom was already pregnant with you when she married Dad." Silence filled the room like water, drowning everything that you're lying. Ryan's voice shook. I pulled out the folded document from my pocket, the one Dad had given me. "Paternity test results, court-ordered, dated 2012. I handed it to Ryan and watched his face as he read. "This can't be real," he whispered. "That's ridiculous." Mom snatched the paper from Ryan's hands. "This is forged. David is trying to poison you against us. Why did you cut my fuel line?" I asked Jerome directly. The room froze. Mom and Jerome exchanged a look, and in that moment I saw everything. The calculation, the panic, the realization that their plan was falling apart. "Get out." Mom's voice was ice. "You're as crazy as your father. We tried to help you, but you're beyond help. The insurance policy you took out on me." I stood up slowly. $500,000. Both of you as beneficiaries, just like the policy on Jerome's first wife, Denise Richardson. Remember her? Jerome took a step toward me. "You need to leave. Now, Detective Williams in my ear. That's enough. Say the word." But I wasn't finished. "She died in a car accident, didn't she? Single vehicle, went off a bridge. You collected $500,000 and started your construction company with the money. Was it quick, Jerome? Did she know what was happening?" "Stop talking." His hands were fists now. "The gas leak in my apartment. The food poisoning. The car that almost hit me. The fuel line cut on I-75. I counted them off. How long have you been planning to kill me? How many months?" Mom stood up, her face twisted. "You're insane. Ryan, call 911. Tell them your sister is having a psychotic break, Nevada," I said clearly. The front door burst open. Dad came through first. followed by Detective Williams and 3 uniformed officers. Jerome moved toward me, but Dad was faster, putting himself between us. "Nobody move," Detective Williams commanded. "Jerome Richardson, Patricia Hayes, you're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and insurance fraud." Jerome's face went white. "This is entrapment. You can't. We have everything on tape." Detective Williams held up her phone, playing back Mom's voice. "We've been planning it for a while. Ever since your accident with the car." Mom looked at me, and for the first time I saw real fear in her eyes. "You were wearing a wire? Your own mother?" "My mother," I said quietly, "died the day she chose a man over her daughter. You're just the woman who raised me." Ryan sat on the couch, the paternity test still in his hands, his whole world collapsing around him. And I watched as the officers put handcuffs on the 2 people who'd spent years trying to erase my father and months trying to kill me. Detective Williams held up her phone, and Mom's voice filled the living room. "We've been planning it for a while. Ever since your accident with the car." Then Jerome's voice. "Insurance approved, everything ready. You can check in tomorrow, then mine. The insurance policy you took out on me. $500,000. Just like the policy on Jerome's first wife." The silence that followed on the recording was damning. No denial, no confusion, just Mom and Jerome exchanging that look, the one that said everything. "That's not we were trying to help her." Mom's voice cracked. "Save it." Detective Williams nodded to the officers. "Jerome Richardson, you're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and filing false police reports." Jerome tried to bolt. He made it 3 steps toward the back door before 2 officers tackled him into the hallway. He went down hard, cursing, fighting even as they cuffed his hands behind his back. "Patricia Hayes," Detective Williams continued, "you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and filing false police reports in 2013 resulting in wrongful restraining order. Did I want a lawyer?" Mom's voice was ice now, the concerned mother act completely gone. "I'm not saying anything without my lawyer. Smart." Simone Jackson walked in behind the officers, her briefcase in hand. "You're going to need a very good one. We've already matched the tools from Jerome's truck to the cut on Melissa's fuel line. Forensics is going through his vehicle right now. And the insurance fraud investigation into Denise Richardson's death? That's been reopened as of this morning." Jerome stopped fighting. His face went gray. "Denise Richardson," Detective Williams said, reading from her notes, "died March 15th, 2004. Single vehicle accident, Bridge Road, Cobb County. Husband collected $500,000 3 months later. And now, 20 years later, same husband, same insurance company, same agent, his cousin Marcus, and another policy on another woman he has access to. Pattern of behavior," Simone added. "A jury is going to love that." Mom started crying then, the kind of crying that's meant to manipulate. "Ryan, baby, tell them. Tell them we would never hurt Melissa. We're family." Ryan sat on the couch, still holding the paternity test, his face blank. "Am I?" His voice was hollow. "Am I really your family, Mom? Or am I just Jerome's son you passed off as Dad's? Ryan, is it true?" He looked at Jerome, who was being hauled to his feet by the officers. "Are you my biological father?" Jerome met his eyes, and for the first time, I saw something like regret cross his face. Yes, the word hung in the air like a death sentence. Ryan stood up slowly. "My entire life is a lie. Everything you told me about Dad, about why he left, about who he was, all of it was a lie that we protected you." Mom started. "You erased him." Ryan's voice broke. "You made me hate him. You made me think he abandoned us. And all this time he was the only one telling the truth." Dad stepped forward, his voice gentle. "Ryan, you were a kid. You didn't know that I should have known. I should have questioned it." Ryan looked at me. "Melissa, I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. I said terrible things to you about him. I believed them. You were lied to," I said. "We both were The officers led Mom and Jerome out in handcuffs. Neighbors had gathered on the lawn, phones out, filming everything. The perfect family on the cul-de-sac exposed. Mom kept her head down. But Jerome walked with his shoulders back, defiant even in defeat. The church van pulled up as they were being loaded into separate police cars. Deacon Williams and 3 church mothers got out, their faces shocked as they watched Jerome contractor. Family man, prominent church member being read his Miranda rights. Lord have mercy. One of the mothers whispered. That man sat in our pews every Sunday. The charges came down 3 days later. Attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, filing false police reports, obstruction of justice. The DA's office laid them out like cards in a winning hand. Mom and Jerome both faced 20 to 30 years if convicted. Their lawyers immediately started making deals, each one trying to flip on the other, that Jerome's attorney claimed Mom manipulated him, that he was just trying to help his family through financial difficulties. Mom's attorney claimed Jerome controlled everything, that she was a victim of domestic abuse herself. Neither story held water once the evidence came out. The forensics report confirmed the tools from Jerome's truck matched the cut on my fuel line exactly. Security footage from 3 different incidents placed his vehicle near my apartment on the nights of the gas leak, the food poisoning, and the fuel line sabotage. The insurance company launched its own investigation. Denise Richardson's death was officially reopened as a homicide case. The original investigating officer, now retired, was brought in for questioning about why certain evidence, like the newly repaired guardrail, never made it into his report. Bank records showed a deposit of $15,000 into his account 2 months after Denise's death. Judge Patricia Newman, the one who'd granted the restraining order against Dad in 2013, faced her own investigation. Simone Jackson filed a formal complaint, citing judicial bias and failure to properly examine evidence. The Georgia Bar Association opened a review of all her domestic violence cases involving Black men. That Dad's restraining order was overturned. The court issued a formal apology, words on paper that couldn't give him back 12 years. But at least acknowledged the injustice. His record was expunged, the domestic violence allegations struck from every database. The court also ordered financial restitution. Mom had to repay 12 years of child support. Dad had sent money she'd claimed went to our care, but had actually funded her lifestyle with Jerome. $160,000, plus interest. Ryan struggled the most. He took leave from his real estate job, moved out of the condo Jerome had helped him buy, started therapy 3 times a week. The man he'd called Dad for 12 years was a murderer. The father he'd rejected was innocent. His entire identity had been built on a foundation of lies. I told him things. Ryan confessed to me one night, his voice breaking. About Dad. Terrible things. I said I was glad he left. I said I wished he'd never come back. He knows you were manipulated. I told him, does that make it better? Does that erase what I said? No. But it's a place to start. Simone Jackson called it the most clear-cut case of conspiracy she'd ever seen. The prosecution had recordings, forensic evidence, financial motive, and a pattern of prior behavior. Mom and Jerome's attorneys advised them to take plea deals. 20 years for Jerome, 15 for Mom, eligible for parole after serving 80%. They refused. They wanted their day in court. They wanted to fight. We prepared to give them one. That I moved out of my East Atlanta apartment 2 weeks after the arrest. Too many memories of near misses and close calls. Too many nights lying awake, wondering if tonight would be the night they succeeded. Dad helped me pack, and Uncle Calvin brought his truck. We moved everything into a new place in Decatur. 2nd floor, security cameras that actually worked, a building where Jerome Richardson had never set foot. You sure about this neighborhood? Dad asked, carrying a box marked kitchen, that it's close to work. Good schools nearby for when, if I ever stopped, not ready to finish that sentence, for when you have kids of your own. Dad set down the box, looked at me seriously. Melissa, you get to have a future now. A real one. That's what all of this was for. We unpacked in comfortable silence, the kind that comes from 12 years of absence and 3 weeks of intensive rebuilding. It wasn't perfect. There were moments when I called him David instead of Dad, when he asked permission to hug me, when we both remembered everything that had been stolen, but there were other moments too, when he knew exactly how I took my coffee, when he hummed the same song he used to sing when I was little, when he looked at me and I saw pure love, uncomplicated by schemes or insurance policies or financial desperation. "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you," he said one evening as we assembled my bookshelf. "You did protect me. You taught me what real love looks like. That's why I knew something was wrong when Mom and Jerome, I couldn't finish, he pulled me into a hug. And this time I didn't hesitate. You saved yourself, Melissa. I just gave you the truth. You did the hard part." Ryan came by on a Sunday afternoon, 3 weeks after the arrests. He stood in my new doorway, hands in his pockets, looking younger than his 29 years. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. Dad was there too in the kitchen, giving us space but staying close. Ryan saw him and froze. "I don't know how to do this," Ryan said. "I don't know how to apologize for 12 years. Dad walked over slowly. "You start by showing up. That's what you're doing now. I said terrible things about you. To your face. Behind your back. I believed every lie they told. You were 10 years old when this started, Ryan. A child." Dad's voice was gentle. "I don't blame you. I never did." Ryan's face crumpled. "How can you not hate me? Because you're my son. Biology doesn't change that. Jerome's DNA doesn't change the fact that I raised you, loved you, chose you every day for 10 years. That was real." They stood there, the space between them filled with 12 years of manipulation and lies. Then Ryan stepped forward, and Dad met him halfway. Sunday dinners became a thing. Not every week. Sometimes it was too hard, too heavy, but enough. Enough to start rebuilding what had been stolen. The church split down the middle over Mom and Jerome's arrests. Half the congregation believed Patricia had been a devoted member for years, that there must be some misunderstanding. The other half remembered David, how he'd been there every Sunday with his kids, how he'd disappeared and nobody asked questions. Mother Gladys, 73 years old and not afraid of anybody, stood up during Sunday service 2 weeks after the arrests. "Y'all want to sit here and talk about that woman like she's a victim." Her voice carried through the sanctuary. I remember David Hayes. Good man, good father. And we sat here and watched him get erased without saying a word. We chose sides without asking questions. We believed a crying white woman over a black man's truth. And we need to reckon with that. The sanctuary went silent, and now that same woman tried to kill her own child for insurance money. Her own daughter, while we were singing hymns and passing collection plates. Mother Gladys looked around at the congregation. "We failed that family. All of us. We need to do better." After that, things shifted. The church mothers rallied around me not with money or grand gestures, but with presence. They showed up, brought food to my new apartment, sat with me when the panic attacks hit, witnessed my truth without trying to fix it. "Baby, you're not alone," Mother Gladys told me. "We see you now. We should have seen you then, but we see you now." Sister Carmen organized a meal train. Brother Jackson helped Dad find a job with a construction company that actually valued black workers. The youth group started a fund for Ryan's therapy bills. IT wasn't about being saved by wealthy benefactors or charitable organizations. It was about community showing up the way community is supposed to. Messy, imperfect, but present. The neighborhood watched too. The family that had seemed so perfect. The contractor everyone trusted. The mother who volunteered at school events. Exposed. Some people whispered. Some people judged. But others understood that appearances lie, that evil doesn't always look like what we expect. Detective Williams became something like a family friend. She checked in weekly, updated us on the case, made sure we felt safe. "I knew something was wrong in 2013, she told Dad. "I'm sorry I couldn't do more then." "You're doing it now," he replied. That's what matters. 6 months later, I sat in a courtroom and testified against my mother. She wore a navy suit, hair pulled back, the picture of respectability. Jerome sat at a separate defense table, his lawyer having successfully argued for separate trials. They weren't allowed to communicate, but I saw them look at each other once, and something passed between them that looked almost like love. Maybe they had loved each other. Maybe that's what made it worse, that they'd loved each other enough to kill for it. Miss Hayes, the prosecutor asked, can you describe what happened the night of December 23rd when your vehicle broke down on I-75? I told the truth. All of it. The fuel line, the recording, the family meeting, the insurance policy. I spoke clearly, my voice steady, and watched my mother's face stay blank. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Jerome's trial came 2 months later. His jury took 45 minutes. Mom got 18 years. Jerome got 25. The insurance company sued them both for fraud. The house in Stone Mountain went into foreclosure. Everything they'd built on lies, and death collapsed. Ryan testified at both trials. It broke something in him, but it also freed him. I need to tell the truth, he said, even if it destroys me. Especially if it destroys me. Dad and I stood outside the courthouse after Jerome's sentencing. Atlanta's skyline sharp against the spring sky. We didn't celebrate. You don't celebrate something like this. You just acknowledge that justice, imperfect and late as it is, finally showed up. You did good in there. Dad said, I just told the truth. That's the hardest thing to do sometimes. We went back to my apartment in Decatur, the one with working security cameras and neighbors who knew my name. Dad helped me cook dinner. His pancake skills hadn't improved, but he made a decent spaghetti. Ryan joined us, still raw but healing, still learning how to be a son to the father who'd never stopped loving him. After dinner, we sat on my small balcony with the photo album Dad had kept all these years. Pictures of me as a baby, as a toddler, as a little girl who didn't know her world was about to shatter. You taught me what real love looks like, I told Dad. That's why I knew something was wrong. That's why I survived. Because somewhere deep down, I remembered being loved without conditions. He squeezed my hand. You've always been strong, Melissa. I just wish I could have been there to see it. You're here now. That's what matters. The city stretched out below us, lights beginning to flicker on as evening fell. Somewhere out there, Mom and Jerome sat in separate cells, their schemes reduced to case numbers and sentencing guidelines. Somewhere out there, Denise Richardson's family finally had answers about what happened to their daughter. And here, on this balcony, a father and daughter who'd been torn apart by lies were slowly stitching their relationship back together, one honest conversation at a time. If you've ever had to choose between a comfortable lie and a dangerous truth, you know the courage that takes. Melissa's story shows us that sometimes the people who should protect us are the ones we need protection from, but it also shows us that truth, no matter how painful, is worth fighting for. Thank you for watching this journey from beginning to end. If you believe in fighting for justice, even when the system fails, hit that like button. If you think family should be built on truth, not lies, subscribe to Revenge with Alice for more stories about people who refuse to stay silent. And drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from. I read every single one. And this community is built on people who understand that speaking truth to power isn't easy, but it's necessary. Remember, your instincts are valid. When something feels wrong, trust that feeling. Melissa trusted hers, and it saved her life. Don't let anyone gaslight you into doubting what you know to be true. And if you're in a situation like Melissa was, where a family is using love as a weapon, please reach out to someone. A real friend, a counselor, a trusted community member. You don't have to face it alone. Until next time, this is Revenge with Alice, reminding you that the truth may cost you everything, but living a lie will cost you more.